Today's video is a very abstract video. I don't believe I'm the first one to come up with this idea, but we're going to be using span to find gaps in our mix, particularly the frequencies, and figuring out ways that we can boost certain elements at these frequency points and not overpower the mix. Essentially, we look in our track and we try and find areas where frequencies are lacking, where we need some, and then we boost subtly in certain elements that could do with a bit of life. So, quick tutorial this, but it's really good for the guys who want to learn more about mixing and mastering. So, like the video, comment any questions, share it with any friends who might not know this technique. And yeah, hope you enjoy.
Boom. So I thought I'd do a little quick video today because I wanted to share with you lot a way of when you're in that last like 10% of your mix down, how you can get a little bit more out of your mix. So let's say you followed how I do a mix down. You start off with your low end, then drums, then synths, then vocals, then effects. Some order of doing that. You've done all 5 of those, everything's sounding nice. Now, let's talk about loudness, perceived loudness. And let's talk about a plugin called Span, because I really do like Span. Let's just play the track real quick. Sick. Little collab with me and Charlesworth. So let's go back onto Span and have a look at what Span's saying. Let's just hold it there. Let's just slow down real quick. As we can see, this line on the y-axis going. It's following the x-axis. I don't know. It's been a while since I've done maths. Basically, this line going across, very similar in terms of volume. And if we play the track now, the mids are kind of there. They're nearly there. Now, let's say, if we pause this now, we can see that there are gaps in the mix, and we can see there are points in the mix where it kind of dips and it kind of stays dipped. So let's just look at it again. So those regions I've highlighted there now are space in the mix, let's call it that. There's space there to fill so that we can get a more full sounding mix. So how can we go about doing that? Well, let's highlight one of the zones. I'll show you one I've already done. So on the vocal channel, I boosted at about 4K, because if you remember seeing before, the last one I circled was 4K. And I thought the vocal might sound nicer there. So let's just see without it on. It's kind of filled in that space a little bit now, and on Span it might not show up the most because we do not want to make this such a drastic change that it's like a big peak now. We kind of just want to be aware of where the space is and go, right, let's try and fill that out. Even though it might still look like there's gaps there, at least you know in your head that's where the space is. So let's try and do this with another element, for example. So around 2.5, I was looking at about 1K, but 2.5, that's probably a better one to sort of address. So 2.5K, what could we really just give a little bit more life to there? I've done it with the vocals, I've done it with the drums, I've done it with the synths, I've done it with all of them, to be honest. But let's just try and get a little bit more out of the mix in general. So let's just go with the drums then. What's knocking about 2K? Maybe the clap. So let's boost this clap at around 2.5K. Should we use... We can either use a vintage EQ or we can use a regular one. I'm going to use a regular one. And 2.5K. Nice. So I'll give it a nice little boost. Let's go back on it. Cool. I am really liking that now. So let's just try and find another region now. I'm hovering around that 1K, aren't I? So I'm gonna go on this closed hat here, which is a little bit lower in the mix, and let's see if we can boost it around 1K and just kind of see what that's going to do to the mix. Let's do it with a vintage EQ this time. This one's the UAD Pool Tech. Really recommend this one. I really do like it, if I'm being honest, for the sound it gives. See, even when we like absolutely boost it loads, you still don't really lose the rest of the mix. Like, the rest of the mix still sounds quite balanced, but obviously we're not going to do that, because when you're doing these little adjustments in your mix, you don't want to be too extreme. If you're being too extreme, there's something wrong that you need to solve earlier down in the chain. You can't just polish a turd, essentially. But yeah. I feel like that's really brought the drums to life now, in terms of like the lower region, that 1K. So yeah, that was just a quick one, really. I thought it'd be quite useful for people. If you want me to go a bit more in depth in this, to be honest, I don't really think this is that much in depth. I think exactly what I've done there, that is how it should be done towards the end of the mix once you've done everything. But don't hesitate to drop me a message and ask me more about that technique, because it might not be as obvious as I'm making it out to some of you guys. And that's fine. That's fine, because sometimes I forget, as we all do. But hope you guys enjoyed that. Make your mixes nice. Make them loud. Make them balanced. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. I will just add as a little side note, you don't want to overdo this bit, and you don't want to just absolute fill up these spaces with as much as you can, because to have loud you need quiet, to have light you need to have dark. Same with this. To have clarity in your mix you need space. You need things to not be there for things to be there. So these gaps, perfectly fine to have in your mix, and your mix already might sound perfect with these gaps. But the way I look at this is, when you do have that, you know, that flat balanced thing that I was showing you before with span, where it's that everything's like sort of hitting that axis and you're noticing it's just not quite there, those gaps are your first option as to where to boost, because you know that when you boost these regions, there's gaps in the mix. Do you get me? But you might find that this gap in the mix is actually benefiting the overall sound and balance, and it's creating separation between your top end, your low end, your low mids and your highs, whatever. But yeah, just make sure you use this towards the end, the latter stages, the last final polishes of your mix. Because if you start doing this at the start and you start crowding up areas that might not need crowding up and they might need a bit of space, your whole mix can get thrown off. And it's way more important to just trust your ears and what it sounds like, as opposed to visually and just going purely off visuals. Don't get me wrong, use both visuals and audio, but you need to understand the limitations of each one and sort of use them in conjunction. I probably should make a video on using the combination of your audio and your visual to mix, which I will do. But this is an example of how you can use the visual to aid your audio and sort of work together. So yeah,